Welcome back to the show. I want to start this week with a thought experiment that, by the time I finish telling you, will be a literal news story from this week.
Take a beginner and an expert. Give them both the exact same cutting-edge AI tool, the latest model, the most expensive subscription, the same prompts, the same screen. The standard assumption, the marketing promise we've been hearing for 3 years, is that the beginner catches up. The technology levels the playing field. Anyone can be a software engineer or a data analyst just by typing what they want. This week, the data we got back proves the exact opposite is happening. AI is not leveling the playing field. AI is drastically steepening the curve, and the labor market is just barely beginning to figure out what that means. So today, I'm putting on the strategic analyst hat. I've spent the week sifting through a massive stack of tech news, market research, and technical blogs from Anthropic, Google, NVIDIA, Sensor Tower, the major shops you'd expect. We are not going to read you the news. We are going to separate the signal from the deafening noise and answer one core question. What changed in AI this week, and why does it matter for business, for power, and for your job? If we connect all of this to the bigger picture, the overarching theme of the week is one phrase: structural shift. We are watching the transition from simple conversational chatbots to autonomous agentic systems that act on their own. But here's the friction. This shift isn't just software anymore. It's causing geopolitical showdowns. It's upending established market monopolies, and it's forcing a complete physical rewiring of our global hardware infrastructure. The loudest story of the week, and frankly the one most undercovered relative to its implications, is what's happening in the geopolitics of AI. The US government just outright banned Anthropic's Fable 5 and Mythos models. The Trump administration labeled the company a supply chain risk, citing alleged guardrail bypasses in the system. On its face, that sounds like a straightforward national security move. But it caused an immediate uproar in the cybersecurity world for a very specific technical reason. Industry veterans like Katie Moussouris pushed back hard, pointing out that what the researchers were actually doing wasn't a jailbreak. It was vulnerability mapping. Let me make that distinction precise because it matters. A jailbreak is actively breaking the lock on a door to get inside. Vulnerability mapping is just walking around the building, checking which doorknobs are already loose. One is an attack, the other is research. Moussouris noted that other models that lack these specific guardrails wouldn't even need a bypass to do the exact same thing. So the so-called flaw wasn't an active weaponization, it was just a mapped weakness. The kind security researchers responsibly disclose to vendors all day, every day. And there's a fascinating layer of corporate intrigue. The Wall Street Journal reported that Amazon security researchers were actually the authors of the paper detailing the bypass. I want to be clear, this is a single source claim right now and requires verification. But if Amazon-affiliated researchers are quietly publishing the flaws that lead to a US government ban on Anthropic, which is Amazon's biggest strategic AI bet, that's a massive corporate intrigue story sitting underneath the geopolitical one. I want to be careful here as we watch moves from the current US administration and the Chinese government, which we'll get to in a second. We are not playing political referee. The goal isn't to endorse anyone's viewpoint. We are looking purely at the market blast radius these policies create. You'd assume a government ban is a death sentence for an enterprise software product. Everyone drops it. Procurement teams panic. Lawyers send cease and desist letters. That is not what happened. Ramp, the corporate finance platform, released its latest sales data this week, and the ban actually helped Anthropic in the enterprise sector. In May, Anthropic's share of business AI subscriptions hit a record 41%. They officially surpassed OpenAI, which dropped to 39.5%. Think about that for a second. A government ban accidentally turned a controversial AI model into a runaway enterprise bestseller. It's the banned book phenomenon applied to corporate procurement. The psychology of the enterprise buyer here is fascinating. When a government declares a model too powerful or too dangerous because of how easily it bypasses guardrails, it accidentally creates an aura of raw capability that no marketing budget could ever buy. CTOs read that and think, this is the model that can do real work. But the strategic implication goes way beyond a temporary bump in corporate subscriptions. The noise is the debate over a specific vulnerability. The signal is that advanced AI is now officially being treated as critical sovereign infrastructure, like defense contracting, like nuclear material, which explains the panic on the global stage. If you're a tech startup in Paris or Bangalore relying entirely on an American AI model, The realization that the US government can unilaterally declare it a security risk and unplug it is an existential threat. So the G7 is now aggressively discussing what's being called a trusted partner scheme, a framework that would let foreign governments bypass US restrictions so domestic tech sectors can't be flipped off by Washington alone. And the sovereign friction is mirroring on the other side of the globe. Beijing just ordered Meta to divest its $2 billion acquisition of Manos, a Chinese-founded AI startup, citing national security. Meta is already cutting Manos off from its internal systems. $2 billion undone. We are literally watching the balkanization of AI in real time. Here's what this means for you. If you build a business with infrastructure dependencies in this space, you need a sovereignty audit. Who can flip the switch on the AI you depend on? And what's your fallback if they do? While governments fight over sovereign control, the consumer side of the market is splintering too. According to Sensor Tower, for the first time ever, ChatGPT's market share dipped below 50%. It's now at 46.4. Google's Gemini has surged to 27.7. Anthropic's Claude is at 10.3. The monopoly is officially over. And there's a measurable spike in ChatGPT uninstalls right now that directly followed OpenAI announcing a deal with the US Department of Defense. The prevailing narrative on this is that AI brand loyalty is now driven by corporate ethics, that people uninstalled in protest. I want to challenge that read, because if I'm a CTO whose company stores proprietary code and data in OpenAI systems, and I see that company signing contracts with the Pentagon, I am not uninstalling because of moral outrage. I am uninstalling because I no longer trust where my data is going. It's not ethics, it's corporate paranoia. And it's a far more pragmatic read on what's actually driving the market right now. Trust in 2026 is no longer a marketing buzzword. It is a mechanical product feature on par with latency or token cost. And the AI market is sorting itself by which providers can credibly promise that your data stays where you put it. The other massive shift on the consumer side is the pivot to actually charging money. The era of unlimited free growth is over. Users are on pace to spend over $4.2 billion on AI apps in just the first half of 2026, and we are seeing two wildly different strategies to capture that money. OpenAI has started serving traditional internet ads to roughly 17% of its daily ChatGPT users. Huge shift for them. It's a return to the volume-based consumer web revenue model, basically treating AI like a search engine and monetizing eyeballs. Anthropic doesn't have ads. They run on a 13% subscription conversion rate for Claude, which leads the industry. That contrast reveals everything about where the market is heading. OpenAI's ad pivot is a bet on consumer volume. Anthropic's conversion rate is a bet on workflow integration. The thesis that if your AI tool genuinely embeds in a worker's daily workflow, you don't need ads. Productivity and data trust become your economic moat. Here's what this means for you. If you're an investor watching this, the pure consumer volume bet on AI is going to look more and more like the ad-supported social media business of the last decade. The workflow integration bet is going to look more like a SaaS business with sticky margins. They are very different investment profiles, even if both companies have AI stamped on the box. So if conversational AI is plateauing as a monopoly, and people are willing to pay for workflow integration, how does that integration actually work? Because we're not just talking about chatting anymore, we are talking about autonomous agents. Anthropic released a study this week on agentic coding using their Claude Code tool. And to establish a baseline, when we talk about AI agents on platforms like GitHub, we are not talking about autocomplete. We are talking about an AI that takes a high-level goal, writes code, runs its own tests, reads the error logs, and corrects its own mistakes in a continuous loop until the software actually works. The share of GitHub projects using these agents has literally doubled in the past few months. But here's where it gets really interesting. The data shows a massive gap in how different people use this technology. When a novice, someone with minimal coding experience, uses the agent, they trigger about 5 actions and get roughly 600 words of output per prompt. Sounds decent, until you realize that 19% of the time, the novice just abandons the session entirely. Nearly 1 in 5 sessions, they hit a wall and give up. Now compared to the experts, expert developers trigger 12 actions and get 3,200 words of code per prompt. Their abandonment rate is only 5 to 7%. This is exactly why the democratizing coding narrative is falling apart. The promise was that AI would do the heavy lifting for the beginner. The reality is that if you don't know how to code, You don't even know how to ask the AI to code for you. Think of an AI agent like an incredibly fast, capable, but easily confused bulldozer. If you put someone who's never worked construction in the driver's seat, they're going to knock over the wrong wall, panic, and turn the machine off. That's your 19% abandonment rate. But an expert architect knows exactly how to steer it. AI in its current agentic form is not replacing domain expertise, it is acting as an exponential multiplier for the people who already possess that expertise. Expertise amplifier, not substitute. The industry is fully committing to this. A startup called Nucor just raised $66 million specifically to give persistent identities to AI agents. They predict autonomous agents will outnumber human employees at major tech companies within just a few years. Here's what this means for you plainly. The most valuable career investment in this environment is not learning AI. Everyone's doing that. The most valuable investment is depth in a domain. Coding, medicine, law, finance, design, because that's the steering wheel that makes the AI useful. The novices are still going to hit the abandonment wall. The experts are about to operate at 10 times their previous output. But you cannot run 10,000 agents simultaneously without the physical infrastructure to support them. And that infrastructure is hitting a wall. Running an agent is completely different from running a chatbot. A chat request is simple. I ask, you answer. An agent involves unpredictable, bursty compute. It pauses, searches a database, waits for a compiler, generates text, loops back, retries. The workload is chaotic. To measure that chaos, the industry created a new benchmark called Agent Perf. And NVIDIA's new GB300 NVL72 architecture just shattered it. It runs 20 times more concurrent coding agents per megawatt of power than the previous H200 chip. 20 times. That's a generational leap. NVIDIA also swept the MLPerf Training 6.0 benchmarks. They scaled to 8,192 GPUs working in perfect unison to train massive models like DeepSeek V3 in just minutes. Here's what most people miss about this. The bottleneck in AI isn't the chips anymore. It's getting the chips to talk to each other fast enough. Traditional copper wiring inside a data center is a massive electron traffic jam. Electrons are physical particles. When you try to force billions of them through a metal wire at high speeds, they bump into each other. They create friction. That friction manifests as heat, which is why data centers consume so much water and electricity. But most of it isn't even doing useful compute. It's just fighting the traffic jam. To solve that, the industry is moving to silicon photonics. Instead of physical cars on a road, you replace the data with beams of light. Photons pass through each other frictionlessly. Once you use a laser to turn an electrical signal into light, the data can travel across the entire data center with practically zero energy loss. This is moving fast from theory to physical infrastructure. Just this week, a company called Coherent broke ground on a massive facility in Sherman, Texas, backed by a $50 million CHIPS Act grant. They aren't making standard silicon chips. They're producing 6-inch indium phosphide wafers, the exotic compound materials necessary to create the microscopic lasers that shoot data as light. The economic reality is shifting. AI still runs on raw compute, obviously, but its ability to scale now depends entirely on connectivity. Here's what this means for you. If you're an investor, the picks and shovels play in AI is not the chip companies anymore. It's the photonics ecosystem underneath them. That's where the next decade of compounding returns gets built. And because of these photonic networks, AI is finally fast enough to escape the data center entirely. It's no longer trapped in a browser window. NVIDIA rolled out an XR AI platform this week that brings spatial intelligence directly into augmented reality glasses. Tech companies like Siemens and researchers at Stanford are using it right now. A scientist can have an AI actively guiding their hands through a complex lab experiment in real time in their field of vision. It acts as a physical co-pilot. It's also bypassing human bottlenecks in bureaucracy. Google DeepMind is testing a prototype with the UK government to process householder planning applications. The goal is to cut processing times by 50%. Anyone who has dealt with city zoning laws knows how massive that is. And it's escaping the atmosphere. NASA and Loft Orbital literally put Google's Gemma 3 vision language model on a satellite. Instead of beaming terabytes of raw sensor data back to Earth for slow human analysis, the AI now analyzes the data right there on the edge, in orbit. It's an always-on patrol layer humans can just talk to naturally. Then there's healthcare. Google's medical AI, they call it AMEA, recently outperformed 21 primary care doctors in diagnostic reasoning and empathetic dialogue. It scored significantly higher in preciseness and guideline alignment, not matched, outperformed. When you put all of this together, the implication is staggering. If an AI can guide a scientist's hands in a lab, navigate city planning laws, monitor borders from a satellite, and diagnose patients better than a panel of human experts, we have to fundamentally redefine what a knowledge worker actually is. The work itself is being done by the AI. Your job is shifting from creator to editor. Sit with that. You are no longer writing the first draft. You are reviewing the AI's draft and deciding whether to ship it. That is a fundamentally different cognitive role, and it requires a fundamentally different skill set. I want to leave you with one final concept from this week's sources because I think it perfectly captures the tightrope we are walking right now. A startup called probably just raised $9 million to build what they call a data science mech suit. I love that analogy. Mechanically, the product is a deterministic validator. Large language models at their core are probabilistic. They guess the best path forward based on patterns. That's why they hallucinate. They confidently make things up. Probably is building a system that acts like a set of steel rails on top of an LLM, physically restricting its output, forcing it to validate every action against known deterministic datasets before it's allowed to execute a command. It's a digital exoskeleton. The AI is the muscle providing raw power and reasoning. The mech suit restricts movement so the AI can't take a step that results in a hallucination or a catastrophic error. And it leaves us with a heavy question to close on. As we eagerly hand over our software code, our medical diagnoses, and our physical infrastructure to these highly capable autonomous agents, if we now need to build an algorithmic mech suit just to ensure the AI doesn't lie to us or make a catastrophic error, who is ultimately responsible when that suit malfunctions? If the software update that changes the world has a bug, who takes the fall? That is the most important regulatory and legal question of the next decade. And nobody, not Washington, not Brussels, not Silicon Valley, has a satisfying answer yet. Thanks for going down this week with me. Pay attention to who's holding the keys. I'll see you on the next one.